Wir haben hier jetzt den mehrfachen Oscar-Preisträger und den Chef von Weta, Sir Richard Taylor. And first of all, thank you for taking the time talking to us.
It's a pleasure to talk to you.
And you had 2 workshops here, and I was wondering, working at Weta, do you even have the time to actually work yourself on projects, or is it mostly just supervising?
I do try and give myself the time. I got into this business to make stuff, and therefore I'm not going to let my career get in the way of that opportunity. It means that a lot of the business side of the company gets pushed into the evenings, but thankfully I share that with my wife so we can socialize around the business side of it. But you always wish you could be doing more as a hands-on person, but such is the scale of things these days, you've got to leave it to the experts.
Okay.
At the time, you got the okay to work on the Lord of the Rings trilogy. What were your thoughts at you get the job?
I describe the emotion as teetering at the edge of a precipice. You stand with 2 choices. You can step back from the edge because the challenge just appears so huge. You can appreciate knowing the sanctity and importance of the literature to so many people around the world, that the challenge of being offered to work on the film and to supervise and manufacture so much of what we did can initially appear utterly and completely overwhelming. But in life you do have to step off the precipice, and you will free fall for a period of time. And then you have 2 more choices, either to fall till you hit the ground and hit the ground really hard, or figure out how to arrest the fall. And you do that by the collaborative energy, enthusiasm, and the passion of the people around you. And no individual can do it by themselves. So you turn to the colleagues and friends that have been with you always, and the new people that you recruit, and just figure out a way to do it. And that's exactly what we did. So the emotion of anxiety quickly passes and turns into exhilaration. And for 7.5 years, I would suggest that it was exhilaration that got us through it and achieved what we did in those films.
Has the work that Weta does changed over those years? Because many people, I think, get the feeling that there's more CGI than practical effects, like it was at the beginning, and now there's a mixture like you have orcs that are actually actors with a lot of prosthetics and digital orcs.
I guess it's not Weta changing, it's the appetite of the way the director wishes to work. Cinema has always been in a state of change. If it hadn't, we'd be watching black and white silent movies with, slightly jerky stop animation puppets. It is directors such as Peter Jackson that innovates, pushes the technology, the 48 frame debate. That's a director willing to try something different, and that's worthy of celebration. But there is a sea change. There is a reality that my career, which is a physical, hands-on manufacturing of physical objects career, has certainly changed due to the unique and wonderful evolution of digital effects. And when we look at The Lord of the Rings with 72 miniatures and every creature in the foreground done physically, and we look at The Hobbit being shot in 3D, and therefore we can't utilise miniatures anyway, but the ability for Peter to take his cameras through the world with much greater freedom, the ability to deliver creatures onto the screen that have a far greater ability to change from the physical anatomy of a human, a person in a suit and a prosthetic, is something that appealed, and therefore there is a transition in place for sure.
Is it common in your industry that you give so much young talents a chance to work?
I think so. I think that every effects workshop in the world is trying to endorse and engender new talent into the industry. We are only as successful as the people we hire, and our core staff, people that have been with us, some of them have been with us for 20 years, are invaluable to us because they have experience, and experience can combat almost any challenge. But you also need just sheer numbers, and you need numbers of highly motivated, enthusiastic and driven people, and that can be found in the youth of the world. There are an exceptional group of young people in the world that are as driven as any older professional, and they can bring that vitality and that inspiration and that can-do attitude to a project that's vital to seeing it get done.
Considering that there is a change in cinema with more CGI, would you still, if someone says, I want to do an indie film and I want to do all practical effects, would you say do that? Or would you have something kind of wisdom from your job to share?
No, well, I run a physical effects company, so I don't do digital effects. If I'm asked to help design how a movie is put together, I will recommend that certain things are done physically, and if it's better to do it digitally, I would recommend that. But if a young filmmaker wanted to make an indie film where they chose to be challenged by doing it all practically, I would celebrate in that, and it would be thrilling for me to be part of a filmmaking crew that wanted to do everything without having to turn to a digital solution. It's not that digital is in any way a negative. It is actually an incredible positive in filmmaking. It's now created the reality in the last 5 years that anything that the director's mind can imagine can be created photorealistically if you've got the budget. But there is still a place in cinema for these beautiful, textural, handcrafted films that we grew up on and that we loved so much. And I would love to be part of a film project that was making film in that manner.
So there are the limitations or the challenges for effects people. You said it, everything you can imagine, you can translate into a movie. Where are the challenges now?
The reality that you can create anything you can dream of is the challenge. There is a disconnect by many that just because it's done digitally, it's somehow easy. The people that are working those computers are as inspirational, as artistically as advanced, as technically exacting as any practitioner of the physical arts that's gone before them. It would be so disingenuous to those incredible technicians that are working in the medium of digital filmmaking to suggest otherwise. But it's not a competition ultimately, it's complementing the different processes and the different techniques available to us to make the best possible cinema for the world's audiences. And it's up to the directors of the world to find that balance and make sure that the films they're creating have a plausibility, a sensitivity and a beauty to them that inspires audiences the world over.
Have you any idea just how many kind of rare crafts and arts like swordsmithing and blacksmithing you kind of have saved just in New Zealand by employing those people for props?
I haven't thought too much about the numbers, but there is no doubt that I never call our company a film company. We're not filmmakers. I call it an artisan studio because I visualize the workshop as being maybe similar to a artisan studio of the Renaissance period, where you have we're living in a modern world. We're living in an IKEA future where everything is hard and plastic and everything is desensitized. It's vanilla flavored. Everything is digitally projected. You can't tangibly touch it or immerse yourself in it. And I don't want to live in that future, and I don't want my children to live in that future. And it's critical, therefore, that there are places in the world that keep these arts alive, that the process of hammering steel, of bending metal, of pushing clay, of building molds, of sewing fabrics, of shaping leather is part of our future. And I actually think about that a considerable amount when I think about the projects that we take on and what we actually do with our team in the workshop.
How does Weta get its job? Are you advertising, or are projects saying we want Weta to do work for us? How does it work for you?
There's a natural thought that work must just fall into our laps because we've done a lot of work, and we've been successful thus far in the work we've done. But I never ever want to rest on my laurels and think the work will just come to me. The day that I choose to become that person, I've always thought is the day I should pack in the business and go home, because none of us are that self-important. And it's probably a 50-50 mix between the phone ringing and someone saying, hey, are you available? Have you got the talents? Can you do this? Do you have the people? And me chasing work. So in the last 3 weeks, I have been to America twice chasing work. And I may go many more times by the end of the year. If I hear that there's a lead, if I hear that a producer may be developing a project, I'll get on a plane and fly up there. I never want to be just waiting, because if the job didn't come to us and I have to lay off our staff, what an appalling and poor endeavour from myself to have been so arrogant to allow their careers to be damaged. So I very much feel it's a process of being extremely active in the pursuit of work.
Thank you very much.
Cool.
I think our time's up, but it was great talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely meeting you both.
Thank you.
Cool.